We think our cities of steel and glass are permanent, the pinnacle of history. But what if they're not? What if, scattered across the globe, lie the ghosts of civilizations so advanced they rival our own, and they all vanished? These aren't just stories, they are warnings etched in stone. Today, we uncover 10 of these warnings, each a chilling reminder that the line between empire and ruin is thinner than we dare to imagine. The temple that predates civilization. Before humanity built cities, before pottery or writing, our ancestors built a cathedral. For 6,000 years, the pyramids of Egypt were believed to be the dawn of monumental architecture. But archaeologists in southern Turkey uncovered something that pushes back that dawn into the darkness of the last ice age, and with it, a chilling mystery of why its creators deliberately chose to erase it. The site is Göbekli Tepe. For decades, it was dismissed as a medieval cemetery, but an archaeologist saw something others had missed: massive, worked limestone slabs just beneath the surface. What he uncovered was not a cemetery, but a complex of stone circles that rewrote human history. The structures are 12,000 years old, an age difficult to comprehend, 7,000 years older than Stonehenge. But who could have built such a thing? This was not the work of simple farmers, but of hunter-gatherers, people thought to be incapable of such an undertaking. Yet here was their genius. The circles are formed by enormous T-shaped pillars, some standing over 18 feet tall and weighing 50 tons. Using only stone tools, they were carved, transported, and raised with a coordination and social organization thought impossible for that era. The pillars are not blank. They are covered in sophisticated carvings of animals. Vultures, scorpions, and lions writhe across the stone, symbols from a belief system we can no longer read. This was humanity's first great temple. This discovery turns the prevailing theory of civilization on its head. It suggests the intense, shared effort of building a sacred place came first, and that need may have been the spark that ignited the agricultural revolution. The temple may have created the town, not the other way around. But the most haunting discovery is not what was built, but how it was unbuilt. After 1,000 years of use, the site wasn't destroyed by invaders or an earthquake. It was intentionally buried. Its creators filled in every circle with millions of cubic feet of debris, recreating the hill that had hidden their sacred work. The reasons for this act are lost. The people of Göbekli Tepe made a conscious choice to walk away from their world-changing creation. Their decision leaves us with a deeply unsettling question. What if progress isn't inevitable? And what world-changing ideas are we, right now, in danger of burying under the weight of our own certainty? The warning of Göbekli Tepe is about the ideas we choose to abandon, but our next warning comes from a city that perfected its ideas, only to be betrayed by the world itself. The city without a king. Imagine a metropolis of 40,000 people with a planned street grid, the world's first urban sanitation system, and orderly brick houses. After centuries of prosperity, it fell silent, leaving a single haunting question for the archaeologists who found it 4,000 years later: who was in charge? This is the riddle of Mohenjo-Daro, a society so advanced it continues to baffle the modern world. Discovered in modern Pakistan, Mohenjo-Daro was unlike any other ancient city. While Egyptian pyramids and Mesopotamian ziggurats were built to glorify gods and kings, this city was built for its people. The lower town was a masterpiece of urban planning, laid out in a strict grid of wide, straight streets. The bricks used to build the city were baked and standardized to a consistent size, suggesting industrial regulation on a massive scale. Most remarkably, nearly every house had a private bathing area connected to a city-wide network of covered drains. This sophisticated water management would not be seen again on such a scale for thousands of years. It was a perfect city, almost. At its heart was the Great Bath, a massive, watertight public pool and a marvel of hydraulic engineering. Yet for all this order and evidence of a powerful organizing principle, there is a ghost in the machine. Archaeologists have found no grand palace. There are no opulent royal tombs or monumental statues of kings. The largest homes are only marginally bigger than the smallest. It appears to be a city without a king, a temple, or a visible ruling class. This peaceful, egalitarian metropolis thrived for 700 years, a complex society that defies every known model of ancient power. Their secrets are locked behind a script we cannot read. Thousands of small soapstone seals have been found, covered in elegant characters, but the Indus script remains undeciphered. The city's end is as mysterious as its governance. There are no signs of a great battle or destruction. The evidence points to a slow, inexorable decline. The most compelling theory suggests it was not an army that brought Mohenjo-Daro to its knees, but the environment. The lifeblood of their civilization, the mighty Indus River, began to shift its course. A cycle of devastating floods and crippling droughts would have shattered their agricultural foundation. Mohenjo-Daro is a testament to a civilization's fragility. It is a 4,000-year-old warning that our own concrete jungles are just as dependent on the water we control and just as vulnerable when that control proves to be an illusion. The warning of Mohenjo-Daro was written by a river that changed its mind. But what happens when the warning comes not from the land but from the sea itself? The sinking city of the gods. For centuries, it was a myth. A legendary port city at the mouth of the Nile, mentioned by Herodotus, then swallowed by the sea. Then, in 2000, underwater archaeologists found it, perfectly preserved in the Mediterranean darkness. They didn't just find ruins, they found a ghost that had been waiting for over a millennium. Known as Thonis to the Egyptians and Heracleion to the Greeks, this was once the gateway to Egypt. For hundreds of years before Alexandria's founding, every foreign ship had to pass through its grand canals. It was a cosmopolitan hub of commerce and immense wealth. But as centuries passed, its memory faded to a whisper in ancient texts. Many believed it was a legend. They were wrong. An archaeological team detected an anomaly in the murky floor of Aboukir Bay. Divers descended, and what they found was not from the 18th century. First came gold coins and anchors. Then the colossal, 16-foot-tall stone head of a pharaoh emerging from the silt like a forgotten god. They had found the lost city. And what they found defied belief. What has been uncovered since is nothing short of breathtaking. Lying on the seafloor are the preserved remains of the city's central temple. Divers found monumental stone slabs, their inscriptions confirming the city's identity and describing its intricate laws. More than 60 ancient Egyptian ships have been found. A whole fleet deliberately sunk in the city's canals, their timbers miraculously preserved. This was the epicenter of global trade for the ancient world. The feeling among the ruins is one of eerie, sudden stillness, not violent destruction. Thonis-Heracleion wasn't brought down by an invading army. It was a victim of its own foundation. The city was built on the unstable, water-saturated clay and sand of the Nile Delta. Over centuries, the immense weight of its towering temples and colossal statues, combined with a gradual rise in sea level, put an unbearable strain on the ground. The end likely came swiftly. A powerful earthquake or massive flood would have triggered soil liquefaction, where solid ground momentarily behaved like liquid. Its fate was not a divine punishment. It was a lesson in geology. It is a silent, submerged warning to the great coastal cities of today. A reminder that the ground beneath our feet is not always solid, and that the sea is always patient. The warning of Thonis-Heracleion was written in water and silt. Our next city proves that a civilization can just as easily be consumed by the very land it stands upon. America's forgotten pyramid city. 1,000 years ago, a city larger than London stood in the heart of North America. Its people built an earthen pyramid with a base larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Then, at the absolute height of their power, they vanished so completely it was as if they were a phantom on the landscape. This is the story of Cahokia, a lost metropolis that challenges our understanding of the continent's pre-Columbian history. Located near modern St. Louis, Cahokia was the largest center of a vast Mississippian culture. Around the year 1050, it experienced a cultural Big Bang, expanding from villages into a sprawling city of as many as 20,000 people. For 2 centuries, it was the center of its world. At its heart stood a monument of staggering scale, a man-made mountain known as Monk's Mound. Monk's Mound, standing 100 feet tall over 14 acres, was built by hand over generations. Atop its summit, a paramount chief would have ruled from a massive wooden building overlooking his entire domain. But this wasn't just a monument to one man. Before the mound stretched a grand plaza, a meticulously leveled expanse of 40 acres for public rituals and games. Surrounding this central precinct were more than 120 smaller mounds. The Cahokians were sophisticated astronomers. They constructed vast circles of huge red cedar posts, known today as woodhenge, which precisely tracked the solstices and equinoxes. This knowledge was the foundation of their calendar, their agriculture, and their power. But this golden age was not destined to last. The first sign of trouble appeared around 1175, when the inhabitants hastily constructed a massive 2-mile-long defensive palisade around the central core. The wall speaks of a deep and persistent fear, a society under immense stress from either outside enemies or, perhaps more likely, from within. Then, the city began to unravel. Over the next 2 centuries, its population dwindled. By 1350, Cahokia was all but abandoned. The most compelling evidence points to an environmental catastrophe of their own making. To build and fuel their city, the Cahokians cleared tens of thousands of acres of forest. This rampant deforestation led to catastrophic erosion and severe flooding, destroying the maize fields that fed the population. Resources grew scarce, the climate became more unpredictable, and the social fabric tore apart. Cahokia was not brought down by an outside force. It was a civilization that consumed its own foundations. It is a chilling reminder that the greatest threat to a civilization often comes not from its enemies, but from its own unchecked appetite. The warning of Cahokia is that a society can devour its own home. But our next story is about an empire that engineered paradise, only to find its perfection was a trap. The empire that engineered its own collapse. In the dense jungles of Cambodia lies a stone metropolis built to be a hydraulic paradise. It was a city engineered to tame the monsoon, a network of canals and reservoirs that transformed a harsh landscape into a thriving imperial heartland. But the very system that gave it life became the instrument of its downfall. This is the story of Angkor, a city that learned a fatal lesson about overconfidence. For 600 years, from the 9th to the 15th centuries, the Khmer Empire was a dominant power in Southeast Asia. Its capital, Angkor, was the largest pre-industrial city in the world, supporting nearly 1 million people. The secret to its incredible success was water. They faced a climate of extremes, a long, punishing dry season followed by a torrential monsoon. Their solution was audacious. They built enormous reservoirs called barrays to capture and store the monsoon rains. The largest, the Western Barray, is an artificial lake 5 miles long. From these barrays, hundreds of miles of canals distributed water, allowing for up to 3 rice harvests per year, an incredible agricultural surplus that fueled the empire's wealth. This network was more than infrastructure, it was a sacred landscape. It was a perfect system, designed for a perfect world, but the world is never perfect. Within this masterpiece of engineering was a hidden, fatal flaw. It was rigid. The system was designed for a predictable world, for a monsoon that always arrived on time. The entire network was interconnected, so a failure in one part could trigger a cascade of problems. For centuries, this precision was their greatest strength. Then the climate changed. Beginning in the mid-14th century, the predictable monsoon cycle broke down. Scientific evidence reveals the region was struck by prolonged, catastrophic droughts, some lasting for decades. The Great Barrays would have shrunk, and the canals run dry, causing widespread crop failure. Then, these mega-droughts were punctuated by super-intense monsoons, unleashing floods of a magnitude the system had never been designed to handle. The violent torrents were too much for the brittle, drought-damaged infrastructure. The Khmer did not simply fade away. Their world was broken by a climate they no longer recognized. Angkor stands as a stone warning that teaches a terrifying lesson. The more complex and rigid a system becomes, the more spectacularly it can fail when the world changes around it. Angkor's warning is about the failure of rigid perfection. Our next city shows us that even a society built on peace and harmony is no match for a planet in turmoil. The city built on music and peace. When archaeologists excavated mounds in the Sup Valley of Peru, they expected to find a fortress built for war. Instead, they found grand pyramids, sunken plazas, and musical instruments of condor bone. They had stumbled upon the oldest city in the Americas, a civilization that, for 1,000 years, knew no violence. This is the story of Caral, a society that challenges our definition of what a civilization needs to survive. Flourishing 5,000 years ago, Caral was a contemporary of the Great Pyramids of Egypt. It was the heart of the Norte Chico civilization, emerging in near-total isolation. The city is dominated by 6 large platform pyramids, and several sunken, circular amphitheaters, designed for public gatherings. But the most profound feature is what they didn't find. In the 1,000 years of the city's primary occupation, there is no trace of warfare, no defensive walls, no battlements, no evidence of weaponry. So what did they build their world with? Instead of swords and shields, archaeologists unearthed a culture of harmony. They found 32 intricate flutes carved from the bones of condors and pelicans. They discovered early forms of quipu, a complex accounting system of knotted strings, suggesting a society built on trade and record-keeping rather than tribute. Caral was the center of a peaceful regional economy. Its people used irrigation to grow cotton and squash in the arid desert, which they traded with coastal communities for fish. It was a world built on cooperation, a peaceful and prosperous civilization that lasted for a millennium, and then it ended. Around 2000 BCE, the people of Caral simply walked away. The grand pyramids were abandoned, and the ceremonial plazas fell silent. The answer came not from other people, but from the planet itself. Geological evidence reveals the region was struck by catastrophic natural events. A powerful earthquake would have destroyed their irrigation canals. This was followed by a severe El Niño climate event, bringing devastating floods while also causing sand dunes to encroach upon their farming valleys. Their peaceful economy was entirely dependent on a stable environment. When that stability was shattered, their society could no longer be sustained. The people of Caral created a world without violence. But their harmony with each other could not protect them from the disharmony of the planet. Their story is a warning that our own intricate systems are only as strong as the natural world that supports them. Caral's warning is that peace is not enough. But our next civilization shows that even absolute power provides no escape, especially when that power builds itself a prison. The Ghost City on the Water. On a remote Pacific island, there is a city that should not exist. It was built from millions of tons of prismatic basalt, constructed upon a living coral reef, by a people with no wheels, pulleys, or metal tools. Known as the Venice of the Pacific, it has been empty for centuries, a ghost city haunting the people who live in its shadow. This is Nan Madol, a monument to an obsessive ambition that consumed itself. Located off the shore of Pohnpei in Micronesia, Nan Madol is a sprawling complex of 92 artificial islets interconnected by tidal canals. For 500 years, beginning around 1200, it was the ritual and political capital of the Çatalhöyük dynasty, the first rulers to unite the island's clans. The islets were constructed by stacking colossal log-shaped columns of black volcanic rock, creating seawalls up to 25 feet high. The total weight of the basalt is estimated at over 75,000 tons. The central mystery is one of impossible logistics. The massive basalt columns were quarried from the opposite side of the island. How did a society with only Stone Age technology transport hundreds of thousands of these stones, some weighing up to 50 tons, across miles of rugged terrain and open water? It's an engineering feat that defies easy explanation. But the how is only half the story. The real question is why. The purpose behind this monumental effort is even more haunting. Nan Madol was an instrument of absolute control. The Çatalhöyük rulers set themselves up as divine kings, forcing the island's rival chiefs and their families to relocate to the city, where they could be constantly watched. Nan Madol was a ceremonial center of immense prestige, but it was also a gilded prison. The Çatalhöyük dynasty demanded endless tribute from the Pohnpeian people in the form of food, resources, and labor. It was a top-heavy, parasitic system, a city that projected immense power while draining the life from the island that supported it. Eventually, the system broke. According to the island's oral tradition, the Çatalhöyük rulers grew increasingly oppressive. A foreign hero, Göbekli, arrived, rallied the local clans, and overthrew the last Çatalhöyük king, bringing the dynasty's reign to an end. After the uprising, Nan Madol was gradually forsaken, haunted by the memory of tyranny. Nan Madol was an engineering marvel born from an unsustainable social structure. It is a silent, waterlogged warning that even the most impressive monuments to power are destined to crumble when they are built on a foundation of oppression. The warning of Nan Madol is about the peril of tyranny. But our next city is a monument not to power, but to fear, a warning about what happens when a society is forced to hide from the world. The city that hid from the sun. In the heart of Turkey, there is not just one lost city, but a network of them, and they are not on the surface. They are vast, subterranean worlds carved into the earth. The largest is Derinkuyu, an 18-story deep metropolis capable of sheltering 20,000 people from a world they had every reason to fear. This was not a city built for glory, it was built to disappear. Its rediscovery was an accident. In 1963, a man renovating his home knocked down a basement wall and revealed a hidden room. Beyond it, a dark passage led down into the earth. He had stumbled upon the entrance to a sprawling underground city, a labyrinthine sanctuary, silent for decades. What archaeologists uncovered was an engineering miracle carved from the soft volcanic tuff of Cappadocia. This was no simple cave network. Derinkuyu descends 280 feet, a vertical city of staggering complexity. The upper levels contained stables and living quarters, while the deeper levels housed everything a community would need to be self-sufficient, including churches, kitchens, and wineries. But how did thousands survive so far from the sun? A 55-meter deep ventilation shaft provided fresh air to the lowest chambers, while a protected, well-supplied clean water that could not be contaminated from the surface. The true genius of Derinkuyu, however, lies in its defenses. Key passageways could be sealed from the inside by massive, rolling stone doors, each weighing up to 1,000 pounds. For centuries, this underground world served as a sanctuary for people fleeing persecution. Different civilizations expanded the city, but it was the early Christians who perfected it, using it as a refuge from the raids and intolerance that swept the region. But the haunting power of Derinkuyu lies beyond its clever engineering. One must ask what it was like to live a life in darkness, raising children by the flicker of oil lamps, listening for the sounds of a hostile world far above. It's a profound testament to the human will to survive, yet also a deeply unsettling vision, a city born of fear, a world without a sky. The city was finally abandoned in the 1920s. Derinkuyu is not a monument to a king, but to the enduring human will to survive. Its very existence, however, is a profound warning about the world that made it necessary. It is a silent, sprawling testament to the devastating cost of intolerance, a reminder of all that a culture loses when its people are forced to hide in the dark. The warning of Derinkuyu is about the cost of hate. Our next civilization fled not from other people, but from the very sky itself, and its story is a warning that sometimes, even genius is not enough. The empire at the top of the world, high in the Andes, at an altitude where most civilizations would fail, a mysterious empire thrived for 1,500 years. They were masters of stone and high-altitude farming, building a monumental capital 13,000 feet above sea level. Then, at the height of their power, the sky itself turned against them. This is the story of Tiwanaku, an empire that achieved the impossible, only to be undone by a force it could not engineer. Centered on the shores of Lake Titicaca in modern Bolivia, the Tiwanaku civilization rose in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. The Altiplano is a world of extremes: thin air, intense solar radiation, and a constant threat of crop destroying frosts. The key to their dominance was a revolutionary form of agriculture. They transformed the landscape into a vast network of raised fields, known as sucacolos. These were elevated platforms of soil separated by irrigation canals. During the day, the water would absorb the sun's heat. At night, this stored heat would radiate out, creating a warm microclimate that shielded the crops from the deadly frost. This sustainable system allowed them to produce enormous food surpluses, enough to support a powerful state. The capital city of Tiwanaku was the heart of this empire, a ceremonial center of imposing stone monuments. Their masons were masters of their craft, fitting multi-ton stone blocks with breathtaking precision. The city is famous for the Gate of the Sun, an archway carved from a single 10-ton block of stone, adorned with cryptic figures, including a central deity who stares out across the ages. They built a city of giants, but they left behind no words. For all its grandeur, the city is profoundly silent. The Tiwanaku left behind no written language. Their political structure, their history, and the meaning of their complex iconography are all subjects of intense debate. We see the evidence of their power, but we cannot hear their voices. Their worldview is lost, a haunting mystery locked within the stones of their silent capital, their civilization unraveled with shocking speed. Around the year 1100 AD, the climate itself broke. Scientific evidence from Andean ice cores reveals the onset of a sudden, catastrophic drought that lasted for centuries. The predictable rains that fed Lake Titicaca and their intricate canal system simply stopped. The sucacolos, their ingenious adaptation for managing water, were rendered useless in a world that had none to give. The agricultural foundation that supported their entire civilization was erased. The Tiwanaku were not complacent. They were brilliant innovators who engineered a solution to one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. Their collapse is the most terrifying warning of all. It proves that even the most intelligent adaptations can be made obsolete by a climate shift so extreme they did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. The warning of Tiwanaku is that nature can break even the cleverest of rules. Our final chapter is about a city that threw out the rulebook entirely, and its fate is a warning about the nature of civilization itself. The city without streets. It is one of humanity's very first experiments in urban living, a 9,000-year-old settlement that looks more like a honeycomb than a city. There were no streets, public squares, or palaces. To get home, you had to walk across your neighbor's roofs and descend through a hole in the ceiling. This is Çatalhöyük, a city that challenges everything we think we know about how societies are meant to be built. Located in modern-day Turkey, Çatalhöyük was a sprawling Neolithic community that, at its peak, was home to as many as 8,000 people. The settlement was a dense, continuous cluster of mud brick houses, packed together in a single architectural mass. All entry and exit happened via wooden ladders from the roof. The rooftops themselves formed the communal thoroughfares, the plazas, and public spaces of this strange metropolis. This design fostered an intimacy and community difficult for us to imagine. What is even more remarkable is that for nearly 2,000 years, Çatalhöyük appears to have been a profoundly egalitarian society. Archaeologists have found no evidence of a ruling class. The houses are all remarkably uniform in size. It was a large, complex and stable society that seemed to function without any discernible hierarchy, a social model that defies nearly all historical precedent, and their inner world was even stranger. The homes reveal a worldview that is just as alien. The walls were covered in vibrant, mysterious art, dynamic hunting scenes, geometric patterns, and unsettling paintings of vultures flying over headless human figures. Plastered bulls' heads, their horns intact, were mounted on interior walls as sacred installations. But perhaps the most intimate and haunting practice was their treatment of their kin. The people of Çatalhöyük interred their departed family members beneath the smooth plaster floors of their homes. They lived, cooked, and slept directly above generations of ancestors. It was a culture where the past wasn't a memory, but a constant, physical presence. Çatalhöyük did not collapse in a dramatic fire or battle. After 2 millennia of continuous habitation, its population simply began to dwindle, and the site was slowly and quietly abandoned. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, but a social experiment that had run its course. We look at these 10 cities as cautionary tales written in stone, but one day, will another civilization sift through the dust of our own skyscrapers, our own highways, our own abandoned achievements? Will they wonder what brilliant, fatal mistake we made? The warnings are not behind us. They are all around us. The only question is whether we will be the first civilization to finally listen. The warnings of the past are clear. If you want to keep uncovering the secrets history has tried to forget, subscribe and turn on notifications. In the comments below, let us know, which of these ancient warnings do you think is most urgent for us today? Thanks for watching.